Well, greetings, Equip for Life course member subscribers. I wanted to make this tutorial to show you how to get the course podcast files onto your phone. I've been talking to some of our students recently who haven't done this yet and haven't really listened to the course podcast yet, just because there's been this little technological hurdle of how do I get these files onto my phone? And I don't want that to be blocking you. Really, a lot of the value in the course now is in the podcast. We've got about 35 hours of training content on our podcast now versus about 4 in the video, kind of the course modules themselves. And so if you think of the value of the course based on hours of training content, then you've got now 39 hours of training content. So if you bought the course with an individual membership, that was $39. So it's basically you're paying for $1 an hour of training content. But basically 35 of those dollars are in the podcast, the podcast episodes, and not the training course content. And so if you aren't listening to the course podcast, then you're not getting kind of the full bang for your buck that you could be. And so I want to show you how to do this. And unfortunately, it's a little bit harder to listen to a podcast as part of a membership site like this than it is a public podcast, because there's not really a way to put this podcast on iTunes like we did with the ERI podcast and keep it protected. Like, this podcast is something that's for the people who've bought our course. It's kind of one of the things that we want to entice people to purchase this and help support ERI by doing that. And unfortunately, and I've spent some time researching this, at this point, there's not really a technological way to put a podcast out like this and have it be just like an easy thing on an app where you could just download each episode quickly without making it open to the public, without making our own app, which we might do one day, but certainly not in the next couple of years. It's a lot of money to put a nice app together, and not our top priority. But certainly I could see that happening one day. If it turned out that, we had, 10,000 people on the course and 95% of them would only listen to the podcast if we made an app, then at that point, there's some threshold where it's the right use of money, but we're not there yet. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how to do this. It's not that hard. It's basically 2 steps. Is you need to download the MP3 files, and then you need to put them onto your phone. And I'm going to be basing this tutorial on iPhone, and I'm on iOS, and so I don't know how different the process is if you're using an Android phone. So I'll probably try to find some tutorials based on other kinds of phones. I imagine it's not that different, but like I'll be using iTunes, for example. And if you're on an Android, then I don't think you use iTunes, although frankly, I haven't had an Android in like 10 years. And so it's just been a very, very long time. I don't know what it's like now. I'm guessing you wouldn't use iTunes, but I don't really know. So forgive my ignorance on that one. But if you're using an iPhone, then kind of here's the process. So first of all, when you log into the course site, you're going to see this welcome page. You want to click on the podcast page at the top. And in case you've never seen this page, if you've only watched the modules, then let me show you something really cool. There's this huge podcast page. The latest episode will always be at the top. And then after that, it goes in chronological order. So if you've kind of already caught up on the podcast, I'm just saving you from having to scroll all the way down by always having the latest episode at the very top of the list here. And so I'm just going to click on an episode to show you how you would do this. Moving forward, is you would click on the episode. That'll open up a separate page. And then at the top, there'll always be an embedded video version of this. And all this is just the audio, but it's in kind of an embedded video player. So you could listen to that. It's not playing right now. I've muted my computer audio. But a lot of people actually use this. This isn't how I listen to podcasts, but increasingly there's research that shows that more and more people listen to podcasts by playing their YouTube video or whatever. And I've actually, and anecdotally speaking, I've talked to some of our students, and a lot listen to our podcast this way too. So if that's the easiest thing for you, is to put that on and listen to it, or maybe have that going on your computer speakers while you're washing the dishes or whatever, like, cool, that's great. But for me, when I listen to podcasts, and I listen to podcasts all the time, every day I'm listening to podcasts. I subscribe to a whole bunch of them. I love podcasts. I've got them on my phone, and it's what I'm playing while I'm driving, while I'm making coffee, that kind of thing. And so for you, if you want to do that, you'll want to download the audio MP3. And so what you would do is you would right click where it says download audio MP3, and if you're on iOS, it's going to say save link as. If you're on Windows, I think it still says save target as, but you might have to double check that. And then you're going to pick somewhere where you want to download this. So this might be your downloads folder, this might be your desktop. If you're going to download more than one, I'd recommend just making a folder. You could put equip for live podcasts, or something like that. And you can download multiple of them. The important thing here is not where you put it on your computer, is just that you're remembering where it is so you can find it later. And real quick, I was going to say, for those of you who haven't gotten into the podcast yet, I'm going to actually make a zip folder, kind of like we did on the welcome page of all of the course lesson MP3s. I've got all the MP3s from the course onto my computer in a folder. And so I'm going to make a zip folder of all of these and just stick that on this tutorial page, so that if you're just, now, I don't want you to have to go through every single page and download these one at a time. That would take a long time. So if you want to catch up quickly, that'll be an easy way to do that. So you would download the zip folder, you would uncompress the zip folder, which is different whether you're on iOS or on Windows. But if you Google how to, unzip a zip folder or uncompress a compressed folder, it's a very easy process. There's free programs that you can install that'll do that, and then you would have a folder that looks like this. It's got all the podcast files in one thing. And then what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to plug your iPhone into your computer. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. Okay, so my phone has showed up in iTunes. A very important thing here, if you click on your phone, you need to make sure you have a certain checkbox checked, which is just like when you're on this main screen, it'll say summary. Scroll down, and you need to make sure that this box is checked, where it says manually manage music and videos. That needs to be checked for you to be able to add things to your phone from your computer the way that I'm going to show you. For me, I like to have playlists, and so if you want to do that, what you would do is just from here is fine. Is you would click. You can't quite see this part of my screen, but where it says iTunes and this is file, so new, you can do playlist, and you could do equip for a live podcast or ERI podcast or whatever. You do ERI podcast is kind of confusing because that's what we call the public podcast, but whatever you want to do. And then there's depending on your computer, you probably can just drag things from one thing to the other. Another thing you can do, I actually recently learned this, is you can copy and paste. And the way you would do that, so if you want to just copy one of these on, so you'd right click on the actual file. Once again, these are the files on my computer, not from the website. And just click copy. And then if you go to this circle with the three dots, you can click paste. And that'll stick it on. You need to make sure that entire process finishes at the top. Sometimes if you do a whole bunch of files at one time, the process might get kind of stopped or interrupted halfway through. So if you're doing, a whole bunch of these at one time, at least just kind of keep an eye on that process and make sure it finishes before you eject. But then at that point, you want to properly eject your phone before you unplug it. So you'd click on that button. And then I'm going to show you how to find it and listen to it on your phone. Okay, and then what you're going to do is you're going to go to your music app, just your stock Apple Music app. And I'm actually going to show you a bug and how to deal with it, because when I go to playlists, notice something interesting. Is I've got my Equip for Life podcast playlist there, but the file is not there. And so this happened as I was making this tutorial, and I started Googling around, and I found out that this is a bug that was going on even in iOS 10 and is still not fixed, which is just that this app is sometimes flaky with playlists. But notice that the song is there under recently added. And so I can just manually add this to the playlist by clicking on this. I can click on add to playlist. Clicking on the playlist is already there. And now I'm good to go. So it's sort of a dumb thing and a flaky thing. I don't know what to tell you about that. I used to use a different music app for listening to long audios, but unfortunately they didn't turn it 64-bit, which means I can't use it on iOS 11. And so I'm just back to kind of the normal music app. There might be better music apps out there. Feel free to research that if that's the thing that you want to do, there might be a better way to do this. But if nothing else, certainly it gets the file onto your phone, and if you have to use your phone to add the files to your playlist, then that's not that hard. But that's basically how you do this. Is once again, you're going to download the file, you're going to get it onto your phone, you're going to probably put it in a playlist if you want to. You don't have to, but you can. And then the file is right there. And you can listen to it at that point. I hope this was helpful. Let me know if you have any questions about this in the comments below. Thanks so much.